Hi and welcome to my new YouTube video. I am Afsar Aziz. I am an associate called engineering lead. You may have gone through my previous videos regarding API automation with REST Assured and Java. In this video, I am hoping to cover performance scripting with JMeter, and this will be covering the basic stuff that is needed to start and kick off API related perf scripting with JMeter. And I have come up with the agenda for today's video session. And to start things, I want to tell you that I'll be starting this as the basic video on the performance scripting, and going forward I will be increasing the number of sessions I hope to conduct on performance scripting and also server-side performance scripting. So in this video, let's start with a basic get call, then how to extract values from the response of a basic get call, then how we could pass extracted values to the next request, and also how we could perform a basic post call. So yeah, so to start, I will be opening up my IDE, the JMeter IDE I am going to use, that is the Apache JMeter 5.3 version. And in this one we can simply start off with file and new. It will open up a new test plan for you, and in this test plan what we have to do is we need to first create a thread group. So thread group is the parent of all our tests, and that is the starting point for our scripting. And I can mention that one test plan can have multiple number of thread groups according to the complexity of your test suite and the performance scripting suite. So in this one it will be only one thread group as it's a basic suite. Yeah, let's start with click on this test plan, then right click and go to add, then threads, and you can select setup thread group. Yeah, the setup thread group video is now on, and we can rename this with a name we want. Like I will rename with new thread group, and there at the latter part of this window you can see there is continue or start next thread group when there is an sampler error. Let's keep it continue. So if there is an error, it will not stop the script and it will continue. And on the thread properties we have number of threads, ramp up period and loop count. Let's keep the number of threads as 1, which means from one user I'm going to perform this basic script, and ramp up period we can give as 1 second for this one, and loop count also I will keep as 1, and I will use the same user on each iteration. Yeah, so let's go and create a get request on this thread group. So we have to right click on this thread group first and go to add and go to sampler, and there you can select HTTP request. So what this opens up is the HTTP request window, and there we can configure whether it's a get call or a post call or put or patch. You can see there are a number of methods, the API calls we can send. So this one I will use a get call, and what endpoint I am going to use is an openly available endpoint, and this endpoint will retrieve some jokes and it will display in the response. So this API request I will rename as get joke. Yeah, so here we have the web server protocol. What this means is it asks us whether it's a HTTP call or HTTPS call. So in my case it's a HTTPS call. Let's put it as HTTPS, and server name or IP is the first part of the URL we have to use, and the path we can pass here. Going forward I will explain you how to put the server name and path. So my server name is official job API appspot.com. Yeah, and the path I am using is random job. Yeah, now let's see how this path is working. So this path is something similar to this approach. So we can give a slash here and put the path here, but it's not the best practice. The JMeter suggests us to put the path always in the path parameter itself. So we will not using the whole path there, and we will be using the path here and remove the path from the main server URL. And what this path does is it will append this random job to this main URL with a slash separated for the main URL. Yeah, so this get call is now completed, and this simply sends a get call to this endpoint, this URL, and this path, and retrieves the results and shows us in the response. To show you the response, I will add a listener to this one. How to add a listener and what a listener does is, so we need to see the results of the API call in JMeter. We need to add a listener. So just click on this thread group and right click on that one, and from add you can go to listener, and let's add view results tree for now. Yeah, I have added a view results tree listener here, and let's execute this API call and see whether the response is retrieved correctly. I have to save it. Save yes, 3.jmx save. Yeah, and it executed, and you can see a green color tick, which means the endpoint is correct and the response is correctly retrieved with the status 200. So let's go to see this get job results, and we can see sampler results with the details here, and also response code is 200, and go to the request, and you can see whether your endpoint is correctly sent. So it's a get call, HTTPS here, and the main URL, server URL, is appended to the HTTPS at the end of HTTPS, and the path we gave in our request, this path is also random job path, is also correctly appended here into the main URL with a slash separated. As it is a get call, we don't have any data sent here, so get data is empty, and it successfully retrieved the results. So response, in the response we can see the response body is retrieved from the endpoint with the ID and type and setup and other details as well on the endpoint we executed. So that's how we execute a get call from JMeter, and let's move into our second part, that is extracting values from response. So what does this extracting values from response means? So let's see the response. This has an ID and the type. So let's say we want to extract the value of this ID 303 and send it to another request. So that is what I am going to perform now. So let's try to extract this value and send it to the next request. So for example, let's say you create a user, and then you need to pass the user ID to your next API call and see his details. So for that kind of example, we need to extract values and send to the next request. Yeah, so let's click on this API call and click on add, and also on add we can go into post processors, and there we have JSON extractor. So this JSON extractor is one of the extractors we can use to extract values from the response using key, and it will work very nicely, as you can give any JSON path expression here, like to any level of your response you can give the JSON path and extract the values from the response itself. So from my example, I am going to extract the value of this ID. So I will be passing the key as ID for my JSON extractor. So let's go into JSON path expressions, and here you can use the JSON path and write it here $.id. So as it's in the parent root level, there's nothing much to worry about, just I need to give the $.id and retrieve this value. So I have given JSON path expression as $.id, and here what I have to give is the name of created variable. So I will extract this and assign to this name, capital ID. Let's say you can give any name you want here on the names of created variables. Yeah, so now I have configured the JSON extractor, and this will extract the value of ID, and I will use another bean cell assertion. So what it does is, I will explain you, add assertions, and here we have bean cell assertion. So what does a bean cell assertion does is, so you have extracted the value here and you can make it globally available on this script itself using a bean cell assertion setup. So let's move and configure it. How we can configure it is just start with the dollar symbol, and we can open up the curly brackets. Underscore and set property. Inside set property you need to open up normal brackets. Inside this one I need to give for which name we are going to assign. So I will use joke ID here and comma, and which variable you are going to assign. So that one I will use dollar, and I will use another curly bracket here, and I will pass my capital ID here. So what I does is, so I have set property of this capital ID which I extracted from the JSON extractor into joke ID, and this will be globally available throughout this soon. So it's easy to use this variable going forward in my next request itself. So hope you got the idea on what I have done in this bean cell assertion. So basically the value I retrieved from the JSON path of the response, and it is assigned to capital ID, and I have made that capital ID globally available with bean cell set property, and capital ID is extracted into joke ID. So this joke ID I can use in my next requests going forward and retrieve the value of ID from the first response. Yeah, so that's how we extract values from response, and now is the important part where we can pass the extracted value to the next request. So let's move and create another HTTP request. Add sampler HTTP request, and that one let's create a post request. That one let's rename as new post call, and let's use the same parameters which we used above. Yeah, here now what I am going to do is I am going to pass the ID I retrieved from the previous request into this new request. So I have configured the protocol as HTTPS, server name here, and it's a post call, and the path is random joke. So let's pass the parameter here and see whether it's correctly appending. So I'm planning to pass the ID to the end of this URL. So that's why I put a slash here, and let's see how we can pass that ID here with setting up a property key. So I will use JMeter's setting up the property key. For that one I will use a dollar, and I will open up curly brackets, and inside these curly brackets you need to put two underscores and property. Inside property you can use a bracket, and inside that bracket you need to give the globally available ID, that is the joke ID. Yeah, let's see whether this joke ID is correct. In my bean shell, I have mentioned simple joke capital ID. So here also joke ID. So what this should perform is, this should send data to this endpoint, and at the end of the URL the ID should be correctly appended. Let's execute this and see. And before that, let's cover the post call as well. For a post call we need to send a body, so let's put body data to this post call. Yeah, so let's put the ID as 1001 and name as ABC. So this is a basic body with the ID and name. This can improve with time, and this can be a large complex post JSON body. So I am using this basic JSON body for this sample exercise, and we can send this body to this endpoint, and that is how we configure post call in JMeter. And the parameterizing part is done here, and let's execute this and see whether the ID is correctly retrieved from my first call, that is this get joke call, and it is sent correctly to the next call. I will save this first. I will clear it. Now the results are empty. Yeah, I have executed the suit now, and it has executed the get joke endpoint, and let's see the result there. Yeah, it has the result with the response data, ID, type, setup, and other details as well. Basically the ID is 324. So in my next request, this 324 should be correctly appended to the URL of this post call. Let's go and see that. Yeah, so you can see it is a post call, and the URL is correct here, and this is 324 is my new implementation which I retrieved from my first call, and I have sent to the second call. Here you can see I have not hard coded the ID here. I am retrieving it from the first call and sending it to my second call. So in the results also we can see it's correctly displayed. So this is how you could perform a basic retrieval extraction from a basic JMeter call and pass it to the next call. So this will be very useful when you are going to perform critical and larger performance scripts on JMeter. And also we can see the post data here. So post data, we can see the data body we sent in the post call like this. It's correctly present on the API request as well on the results. And why you see a red color cross mark here, that's because this endpoint is not available, and I use this endpoint only to demonstrate how to pass the parameter correctly, extracting values from the previous request, and how you could create a body. So if it is a correct endpoint, it should retrieve the correct results with this green mark 200 response. Yeah, so that's what I needed to demonstrate in my first video, and I hope you got an idea on how to kick off API scripting on JMeter for performance testing. And going forward, I plan to demonstrate some more videos on performance scripting. Yeah, thank you for watching the video, and hope to catch you all soon.